The sky above Seoul turned dark at noon. Not from clouds, but from ships. Hundreds of them, each the size of a mountain, blocking out the sun across every major city on Earth. They appeared without warning, without sound, simply materializing as if they had always been there. Ambassador Dae-ho stood on the rooftop of the United Earth Council building, watching the massive vessels hover in perfect formation. His phone buzzed constantly with calls from world leaders. But he ignored them. There was nothing to say yet. They were all waiting for the same thing. The message came at exactly 12 GMT. Every screen on Earth, every device capable of displaying images, showed the same face. It was humanoid, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Its eyes were completely black, reflecting nothing. People of Earth, the being said. Its voice translated perfectly into every human language simultaneously. I am Overlord Vex Tar of the Galactic Confederation. Your species has been observed. You have achieved faster than light travel. By the ancient laws, you are now eligible for membership in our great civilization. Dae-ho felt his stomach tighten. The word eligible sounded wrong, too formal, like a trap hidden in legal language. Membership requires contribution, Vextar continued. All species must pay tribute to maintain peace and order across the galaxy. Your planet will provide 40% of all natural resources annually. You will share all technological advances. You will send 100,000 of your people to serve in the labor corps. These terms are non-negotiable. They have been accepted by 847 species before you. The screen showed images of other worlds, other species. Some looked almost human. All showed the same thing. Massive mining operations. Cities stripped of resources. People working in massive factories under alien supervision. You have 30 days to prepare your first tribute payment, Vextar said. Refusal will result in the sterilization of your planet and the extinction of your species. We do not make this threat lightly. We have done it before. Choose wisely. 3 Nair. Our Farview RG. Well DAGA. The screens went dark. The ships remained. Dae-ho's phone exploded with calls again. This time, he answered. The president of the Pacific Alliance was screaming. The European premier was demanding military options. The African Union wanted to negotiate. Everyone was talking at once, and no one was listening. Quiet! Dae-ho shouted into the conference call. The voices stopped. Panicking will not help us. We need information. We need time. Time? General Taeyang's voice came through, hard and angry. They gave us 30 days to become slaves. We should fight. Fight with what? Captain Hana spoke up from her position on the orbital defense station. I'm looking at their ships right now. Our best missiles wouldn't scratch their paint. Our lasers can't even lock onto them. They're using technology we don't understand. Fighting them would be suicide. So we just surrender? Taeyang demanded. No, Dae-ho said quietly. We think. Humans are good at thinking. He ended the call and looked up at the ships again. Somewhere up there, Vextar was waiting for Earth to break, to accept like every other species had done. Dae-ho wondered how long it usually took. Hours? Days? Did anyone ever make it to the 30-day deadline? His assistant approached, a young woman named Hana's cousin Ji-won, who worked in the xenoanthropology division. Ambassador, I've been analyzing the message. There's something odd. Everything is odd, Dr. Ji-won. No. I mean the phrasing. 847 species have accepted. Not all species accept. Or everyone accepts. He gave us a number. Why? Dae-ho frowned. Maybe it's just how they talk. Or maybe it's important that we know exactly how many came before us. Maybe it's supposed to make us feel small. Outnumbered. Ji-won pulled up her tablet, showing the broadcast again. And look here. When he shows the other species, they all look defeated. Broken. but he never shows resistance. Never shows what happens if someone fights back. Because they all died, Daeho said. Maybe. Or maybe no one ever really tried. The idea was insane. It was also the first thing that made sense all day. Daeho looked at Jiwon carefully. You think we should refuse? I think we should learn everything we can in the next 30 days. I think we should find out who these people really are. What they really want. And whether 847 species accepted because they had to, or because they were scared. There's a difference? There's always a difference. Daeho thought about it. Then he made a decision that would change everything. Get me a channel to Vextar's ship. I want to request a meeting. Tell him Earth accepts the terms and wants to discuss the logistics of payment. Take Starg, Argon. Take Starg. Take Starg. Jiwon's eyes widened. You're going to accept? I'm going to make them think we're accepting. But really, I'm going to buy us time to think. He smiled. A thin, dangerous smile. And while we're thinking, we're going to do what humans do best. What's that? Ask annoying questions. The message went out. An hour later, the response came back. Vextar would meet with Earth's delegation in 7 days aboard his flagship. He sounded pleased. Like he had expected this. Like it always happened this way. Daeho watched the ships in the sky and wondered if Vextar had ever met a species quite like humanity. Somehow, he doubted it. The countdown had begun. 30 days to save the world. Not with weapons, but with something far more dangerous. Ideas. Dr. Jiwon had not slept in 3 days. Her office was covered in papers, screens showing alien faces, and empty coffee cups. She was studying the Confederation, trying to understand how 847 different species could all accept the same terrible deal. The answer was starting to form in her mind, and it terrified her. They're all afraid, she said to her team. Every single one of them. Her assistant Hyun looked up from his computer. Of course they're afraid. The Confederation has ships that can destroy planets. No, you don't understand. They're afraid of the idea of the Confederation, not the reality. Jiwon pulled up footage of a species called the Rithar. They looked like large cats walking on 2 legs. The Rithar have been paying tribute for 3,000 years. But look at this. She showed them numbers. The Confederation takes 40% of their resources. But the Rithar produce far less than they could. They've actually reduced their own production over time. They're not being pushed to their limits. They're just giving up. Maybe they can't produce more, Hyun suggested. Or maybe they never tried. Jiwon switched to another species. Then another. The pattern was the same everywhere. Production decreased over time. Innovation stopped. These civilizations were dying slowly. But not because the Confederation was crushing them. They were crushing themselves. It's learned helplessness, she said. The Confederation showed up, demonstrated their power once, and these species just broke. They accepted it. They never tested the boundaries. They never pushed back. They just assumed resistance was impossible. Across the city, General Taeyang was having a very different conversation. His war room was filled with officers studying the alien ships, trying to find any weakness, any way to fight back. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency. One officer explained. If we could synchronize our weapons to match, we'd need 12 years to develop that technology. Taeyang interrupted. We have 23 days left. Then we evacuate, another officer suggested. Get as many people off-world as possible before. And go where? Taeyang slammed his hand on the table. They control faster than light travel. They'd find us anywhere we ran. Taeyang. His aide, a quiet young man named Quan, spoke up. Sir, Ambassador Daeho has requested your presence at the council meeting. He says it's urgent. Taeyang wanted to refuse. He didn't have time for more talking. But something in Quan's expression made him stop. He found something? Oh, I think so, sir. The United Earth Council chamber was packed. Every nation had sent representatives. Dae-ho stood at the center, looking tired but determined. Next to him was someone unexpected. An alien. The room erupted in shouts. Guards moved forward, but Dae-ho raised his hand for silence. "This is Myung," he said. "He's from a species called the Keller. They've been part of the Confederation for 2,000 years. He came to Earth in secret, at great personal risk, to talk to us." Myung was small, barely 5 feet tall, with gray skin and large eyes. He looked nervous, his hands shaking slightly. When he spoke, his voice was soft, translated by a device on his collar. "I came because I had to," Myung said. "When we heard that Earth was contacted, most species felt sorry for you. They remembered their own first contact. They remembered being afraid, but I felt something different. I felt hope." "Hope for what?" Someone in the audience shouted. "That maybe you would do what we didn't. That maybe you would say no." The room went silent. Myung continued, his voice growing stronger. "The Confederation came to my world when my great-great-grandfather was young. They appeared in the sky, just like they did here. They showed us their weapons. They destroyed one of our moons as a demonstration. And we surrendered. Immediately." He paused, and something like shame crossed his face. "But here's what we didn't know until much later. That was the only weapon they fired. They never attacked again. They didn't need to. We were already beaten." "You mean they bluffed?" Tae-yang asked, leaning forward. "Not exactly. They have the weapons. They've used them before. But that was thousands of years ago. Now they don't need to. Species surrender before they even think about fighting. The Confederation's real power isn't their ships, it's their reputation." Ji-won stood up, excited. "This confirms my research. Every species in the Confederation accepted tribute after one demonstration of force. No prolonged wars. No extended conflicts. Just immediate surrender. Because we were smart," someone argued. "Fighting would have been suicide." "Maybe," Dae-ho said. "Or maybe the Confederation has been running the same script for so long that they've forgotten how to deal with anything else." He looked at Myung. "Tell them the rest." Myung nodded. "The Confederation is old, ancient. They've been doing this for 50,000 years, but they're also stuck. They don't innovate. They don't change. They take technology from conquered species, but they rarely improve it. They're powerful, but they're not growing. They're just maintaining what they have." "A bureaucracy," Dae-ho said. "A massive, ancient bureaucracy that runs on routine and fear. And we're about to throw sand in the gears." "How?" Tae-young demanded. "By doing what humans do best." Dae-ho smiled. "We're going to complicate things. Over the next week, Earth transformed. But not in the way the Confederation expected. Instead of preparing resources for shipment, Earth prepared something else entirely. They gathered lawyers. Thousands of them. Every language, every specialty, every legal tradition. They compiled every human law, every treaty, every contract ever written. They prepared questions. Millions of questions. Captain Hana watched from orbit as the preparations continued. Her ships were still hopelessly outgunned. That hadn't changed. But something else had changed. Her crew was no longer afraid. They were angry. And anger, she was learning, was far more useful than fear. "Captain," her communications officer called. "We're receiving a message from Vex-Tar's flagship. They're ready for the tribute delegation. Tell them we're coming," Hana said. "And we're bringing everything they asked for." She smiled. It was not a nice smile. The Confederation was about to learn that humanity didn't surrender the same way other species did. Humanity had a different approach to impossible situations. They got creative. The human fleet arrived at the Confederation collection station exactly on schedule. 20 massive cargo ships, escorted by Captain Hana's warships. From space, the station looked like a small moon, covered in docking bays and processing centers. Ships from 100 different species waited in line, offloading their tribute like a cosmic tax day. Admiral Kwan stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the station grow larger on the view screen. He was an old man, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in Earth's last great war 30 years ago. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. All ships report ready, his officer announced. The cargo is secure. Good, Kwan said. Remember the plan. We follow procedures exactly. We're polite, we're cooperative, and we don't back down. Hana's voice came over the comm from her ship. Sir, we're being hailed by station control. They're directing us to docking bay 73. Acknowledge and comply, Kwan ordered. Then, more quietly, here we go. The human ships docked smoothly. The cargo bay doors opened, and the Confederation got its first surprise. Instead of containers filled with resources, out walked 100,000 humans. They were dressed in business suits. They carried briefcases. And they all looked extremely professional. Vextar himself came to the docking bay to witness Earth's submission. He was accompanied by dozens of Confederation officials, all expecting to see the usual scene. Defeated aliens, heads bowed, hauling their world's wealth into storage. What he saw instead made him stop walking. The humans formed orderly lines. At the front stood a woman in a dark blue suit. Her name badge read, Su Jin, Legal Envoy, Earth. Overlord Vextar, she said, bowing slightly. Thank you for receiving us. We've brought everything you requested. Vextar's black eyes narrowed. Where are the resources? In the cargo ships, fully documented and catalogued. Sujin gestured, and several humans came forward carrying tablets. We have complete manifests, including origin points, extraction methods, environmental impact assessments, and estimated replacement costs. Replacement costs? One of the Confederation officials asked, confused. Of course, these are resources taken from Earth's biosphere. We need to document their value for our own records. Sujin smiled pleasantly. Standard accounting practices. Vextar waved a hand dismissively. And the technology transfer? Vex. And the technology transfer? Another group of humans came forward, pulling floating carts loaded with data drives. Everything is here, one of them said. Complete technical specifications for all human technology. We've also included the theoretical frameworks, the research that led to each discovery, and the legal patents for each invention. Patents? Vextar was starting to sound annoyed. Yes, Overlord. Under Earth law, all technology is protected intellectual property. We've included the documentation to show who owns what. We thought it might be important for proper record keeping. The Confederation officials were starting to look at each other nervously. This wasn't how it usually went. Usually species just gave them everything and left. Fine, Vextar said. Sujin gestured to the 100,000 people behind her, all present and accounted for. Each one is a volunteer, as specified in your message. We took the term volunteer seriously. Acceptable. They will be assigned to, however, Sujin continued smoothly. We do need to review their working conditions first. You see, Earth has very specific labor laws. Minimum wage requirements, maximum working hours, safety standards, break periods, health insurance, retirement benefits. We'll need to inspect the facilities to ensure compliance. Vextar stared at her. Compliance? With Earth law, yes. These are Earth citizens. They're entitled to protection under our legal system, no matter where they work. Sujin pulled out a tablet. We've prepared a complete list of requirements. It's only about 4,000 pages. We can start the review process immediately. You cannot dictate terms to the Confederation. Oh, we're not dictating anything, Sujin said, still smiling. We're simply requesting clarification. You asked for 100,000 people. We brought them, but you didn't specify the terms of their employment. Under Confederation law, specifically Article 847, Section 3, all labor agreements must be documented in detail. We're just following your own rules. Admiral Kwan watched from his ship as Vextar's expression changed from annoyance to confusion to something approaching alarm. The Overlord turned to his officials. They were frantically checking their databases, trying to find Article 847, Section 3. It exists, one of them whispered. It's from 9,000 years ago. No one's invoked it since then. Back in the docking bay, more humans were unpacking their briefcases. They began setting up desks and computers, right there in the station. What are you doing? A Confederation guard demanded. Setting up our office, one of the humans replied cheerfully. We need workspace to process all the documentation. Should only take a few weeks. Cross. Weeks? Oh yes, maybe months. There's a lot to review. We want to make sure everything is perfect. Captain Hana walked into the docking bay, her military uniform crisp and clean. She approached Vex's Tar directly, unafraid. Overlord, we also need to discuss the ships. What ships? Your ships, the ones orbiting Earth. They've been in our atmosphere for 30 days without permission. We've documented the environmental impact. The shadow they cast has affected global temperatures by 0.3 degrees. We've also detected exhaust particles. We need to file an environmental impact report. This is absurd, Vextar shouted. Is it? Ambassador Deho stepped out from behind Hana. He had been there all along, watching. You asked us to follow Confederation law. We're following it, every single word of it. If there's a problem, perhaps we should bring it before the Galactic Council for arbitration? The word arbitration seemed to cause physical pain to the Confederation officials. One of them, actually, groaned. The Council hasn't heard an arbitration case in 2,000 years, Vextar said slowly. Then we'll be making history, Deho replied. How exciting! For a long moment, no one spoke. The 100,000 humans waited patiently, briefcases in hand. More ships from other species were arriving, bringing their own tribute. They slowed down as they saw the humans, confused by what was happening. Finally, Vextar spoke, his voice cold. You are playing a dangerous game, humans. No, Overlord, Deho said quietly. We're playing your game. We're just playing it better than anyone else has bothered to try. Vextar turned and left the docking bay without another word. His officials scrambled to follow, but Kwan could see it in their faces. Something had changed. Something had broken. For 50,000 years, the Confederation had run on fear and routine. Species surrendered, paid tribute, and never questioned the system. Humanity had just asked their first question. And questions, Kwan realized, were more dangerous than any weapon. The cargo bay doors remained open. The humans started unpacking more equipment. Someone set up a coffee maker. It was going to be a long negotiation. 3 weeks after the humans arrived, the Confederation collection station was in chaos. Counselor Thex had worked at the station for 40 years. In all that time, he had processed tribute from thousands of species. It was boring work, but simple. Species came, dropped off their payment, and left. The system ran like clockwork. Now there were humans everywhere. They had set up offices in 6 different docking bays. They filed requests in triplicate. They asked questions about everything. They wanted documentation for every Confederation law, every regulation, every procedure. And worst of all, they found mistakes. Counselor Thex? A human woman appeared at his desk. Her name was Unji, and she had been asking him questions for 3 days straight. I have a problem with Form 4471B. Thex wanted to scream. Instead, he said, What now? The form asks for resource extraction data going back 5 years. But Confederation regulations require only 3 years of historical data. That's Regulation 4472, subsection 9. So which is correct, the form or the regulation? They're both correct, Thex said tiredly. But they contradict each other. Then use the form. But the regulation takes precedence over administrative forms. That's stated in the Administrative Procedures Act, Chapter 3. Unji showed him her tablet, which somehow had a copy of every Confederation law ever written. So I'll need you to either correct the form or provide written authorization to override the regulation. Thex stared at her. This has never been a problem before. I'm sure it hasn't, Unji said kindly. Most species probably just filled it out however they wanted. But we want to do this correctly. So which is it? Thex didn't know. He had never needed to know. He called his supervisor. His supervisor called his supervisor. Eventually, they had to send a request to the Galactic Council itself, asking for clarification on a contradiction that had existed for 6,000 years. And that was just one form. The humans had found hundreds of similar problems. In another part of the station, legal envoy Sujin was conducting inspections of the Labor Corps facilities. She brought a team of safety inspectors, medical doctors, and labor rights specialists. This facility fails 17 safety standards, she announced to the facility manager, a tall alien with blue skin. The air filtration is inadequate. The lighting causes eye strain. The noise levels exceed safe limits, and there are no emergency exits clearly marked in all languages. These facilities have been used for 10,000 years. The manager protested. That doesn't make them safe, Sujin replied. Under Confederation Labor Code, Section 445, all workers are entitled to safe working conditions. These conditions are not safe. Therefore, we cannot allow our people to work here until violations are corrected. But your people agreed to serve in the Labor Corps. They agreed to work, not to die. Sujin handed him a tablet. Here's a list of required improvements. We'll conduct another inspection in 2 weeks. The 100,000 humans refused to start working. They sat in the cafeterias, reading books, playing games on their phones, and occasionally filing more paperwork. They were perfectly polite about it. They just wouldn't work, and the Confederation couldn't force them. Because technically, the humans were right. The facilities did violate safety codes, codes that no one had enforced in millennia, but they were still on the books. Overlord Vextar called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. How long until the humans leave? He demanded. They show no signs of leaving, Overlord, one official reported. They've requested permission to stay indefinitely to ensure proper processing of their tribute. Deny the request. We can't. Regulation 9823 allows tribute-paying species to verify that their payment is properly recorded. The humans claim they're just verifying. Vextar slammed his hand on the table. This is disrupting the entire station. Other species are asking questions now. The Rithar delegation inquired about safety inspections for their workers. The Kelvin want to review their tribute agreement. This is spreading. Worse than that, Overlord. The official looked nervous. The humans have been broadcasting everything. Every form they file, every question they ask, every inspection they conduct. It's all being sent back to Earth and shared with every species that will listen. Block their transmissions. We tried. They're using Confederation communications arrays. They filed proper requests for access. It's all legal. Vextar realized with growing horror that he was trapped. The humans hadn't broken a single law. They were following every rule, exactly. They were just following all of them at once, which no one had ever done before. 3 days later, the first crack appeared. The Kellor delegation, led by Myung, submitted a formal request to the Galactic Council. They wanted to review their tribute agreement. They wanted human lawyers to help them. The Council denied the request. But 2 days after that, the Rithar made the same request. Then, the Kelvin. then 3 more species. Admiral Kwan watched it unfold from his command ship. "They're waking up," he said to Captain Hana, who stood beside him on the bridge. "The other species?" "Yes. For thousands of years, they've just accepted the system. They never questioned it, because everyone else accepted it too. But now they see us questioning everything, and they're starting to wonder, what if we're right?" On the station, Sujin received a visitor. It was a member of the Rithar species, one of the cat-like aliens Earth had studied. His name was Kalith, and he looked scared. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "What your people are doing? You're actually demanding better treatment?" "We're not demanding anything," Sujin corrected. "We're just insisting on following the law. All of it. But the Confederation is so powerful." Sujin smiled. "Afraid of what? They can destroy our planet. Yes. But if they do that, they prove they're tyrants. They prove that the tribute system isn't about order and civilization. It's about control and fear. Every species in the galaxy will know it. The Confederation's entire authority is based on the idea that they're legitimate. Destroy Earth, and that legitimacy dies." Kalith thought about this. "So they're trapped. We're all trapped. But we're making the trap visible. Once you see the bars, you can't unsee them." Word of this conversation spread. Kalith told other Rithar. They told other species. Within a week, 17 species had formally requested Earth legal consultation. The Confederation Council tried to stop it, but the requests were filed under proper procedures. They couldn't deny them, without revealing that they were afraid of what might happen. Ambassador Daeho sent a message to the Council. It was simple and direct. "The people of Earth request a formal arbitration hearing regarding the tribute system. We believe the current system violates several fundamental Confederation laws regarding free trade, labor rights, and voluntary association. We are prepared to present our case before the full Galactic Council." For 2 days, there was no response. The Confederation's leadership was meeting in emergency session, trying to decide what to do. Finally, the reply came. But it wasn't what anyone expected. "Your request for arbitration is granted. The hearing will be held in 30 days. The future of the tribute system will be decided by the full council." At all. Vextar had made his choice. Rather than back down to one species, he would put the entire system on trial. He thought he would win. He thought the council would side with 50,000 years of tradition. He had no idea what was coming. The Galactic Council chamber was the oldest structure in known space. It had been built 50,000 years ago, carved from a single asteroid and placed in neutral space where no species held territory. 847 species had seats in the Great Circular Hall. Earth's seat was the newest, still shiny compared to the ancient stones around it. Ambassador Daeho sat in that seat, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. To his left sat Sujin, carrying a briefcase full of documents. To his right sat Captain Hana, in full military dress uniform. Behind them, in the observation gallery, sat representatives from dozens of species who had requested permission to watch. At the center of the chamber stood Overlord Vextar, surrounded by the council leadership. They looked confident. They had prepared for this moment, gathering evidence of 50,000 years of successful governance. The chief arbiter, an ancient being whose species name was unpronounceable to humans, called the session to order. "The council recognizes the petition from Earth," the arbiter said, its voice somehow understood by everyone present. "Ambassador Daeho, present your case." Daeho stood. For a moment, he felt the fear that every other species must have felt when facing the Confederation. Then he remembered the 100,000 humans still sitting patiently at the collection station, refusing to work in unsafe conditions. He remembered Myung, risking everything to tell Earth the truth. He remembered his own species' history of questioning authority, of demanding better. "Thank you, Arbiter," Daeho began. "Earth challenges the tribute system on 3 grounds. First, it violates the Confederation's own laws regarding voluntary association. Second, it constitutes forced labor, which is prohibited under the Rights of Sapient Beings Act. Third, it prevents genuine cooperation between species by replacing partnership with coercion. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several species leaned forward to listen more carefully. Vextar stepped forward. Ridiculous. The tribute system has maintained peace for 50 millennia. Every species has agreed to it. Have they? Sujin stood, pulling documents from her briefcase. Or did they simply not refuse? There's a difference. Consent under threat of extinction isn't consent. It's surrender. They could have fought, Vextar argued, against opponents with vastly superior technology? That's not a choice. That's a hostage situation. Sujin displayed evidence on the chamber's screens. We've studied the historical records. In 50,000 years, only 12 species ever attempted to resist. All 12 were destroyed within days. Every other species saw this and surrendered immediately. You call it peace. We call it intimidation. The chamber erupted in noise. Species were talking to each other. Some angry, some thoughtful. The Arbiter called for silence. Overlord Vextar, the Arbiter said. How do you respond? The strong guide, the weak? Vextar replied. This is the natural order. The Confederation provides protection, technology, and structure. The tribute is simply payment for these services. Then let's talk about those services, Deho said. He pulled up statistics. In the past 1,000 years, how many times has the Confederation protected member species from external threats? Vextar hesitated. There have been no external threats. Our territory is secure. No pirate attacks, no Rouge factions, no internal conflicts, minor incidents, handled locally. So the Confederation hasn't actually protected anyone from anything in 1,000 years. What about technology? What new innovations has the Confederation developed? Again, Vextar paused. We maintain existing technology. You take technology from conquered species. Sujin corrected. According to our research, the Confederation hasn't invented anything new in 10,000 years. You're not sharing your technology. You're collecting everyone else's and hoarding it. And structure, Deho continued. Let's talk about that. We found contradictions in your legal code. We found regulations that conflict with each other. We found safety standards that no one enforces. We found labor laws that everyone violates. The structure you provide is a facade. You're not maintaining civilization. You're maintaining control. The chamber was silent now. Species were looking at each other, seeing the same realization dawn in alien eyes. From the gallery, Myung stood up. May I speak? The Arbiter looked surprised but nodded. I'm Myung of the Keller, he said, his voice shaking but clear. My species has paid tribute for 2,000 years. We never questioned it because we were afraid. But the humans made me realize something. We're not afraid of the Confederation's weapons. We're afraid of what it would mean if we resisted. We're afraid of being alone. Khan. He looked around the chamber. But we're not alone anymore. There are 847 species here. If we all said no, what would the Confederation do? Destroy us all? Then, who would pay tribute? The Confederation needs us more than we need them. More species stood up. A Rithar delegate named Kalith spoke. My people want to review our agreement. We want Earth lawyers to help us understand what rights we have. A Kelvin delegate stood. We want safety inspections like the humans demanded. Our workers have been dying in those facilities for generations. We thought it was normal. Now we know it's not. One by one, species began standing. Not all of them. Maybe a quarter of the chamber. But it was enough. Vextar looked around, his black eyes wide. You cannot do this. The system has worked for 50,000 years. It worked for you, Deho said quietly. It failed everyone else. And I think you know that. The Council will not permit this chaos, Vextar shouted. We will. You'll what? Captain Hana stood up, her voice cutting through the noise. Destroy a quarter of the galaxy? Prove that you're tyrants? You've already lost, Overlord. The moment we questioned the system, we won. Because now everyone else is questioning it too. The Arbiter raised a hand for silence. The Council will vote. All in favor of maintaining the current tribute system? Hands rose. Perhaps half the chamber, mostly the older, more established species who had been part of the Confederation from the beginning. All in favor of reforming the system? More hands rose. Not quite as many, but close. The chamber was divided almost equally. The vote is inconclusive, the Arbiter announced. The Council cannot maintain a system that half its members oppose. Therefore, I propose a compromise. The tribute system will be replaced with a voluntary cooperation framework. Species will contribute what they can afford. Stronger species will assist weaker ones. All agreements will be negotiated fairly, with proper legal representation available to all parties. Vextar looked like he had been struck. You're dismantling everything we built. No, the Arbiter said. We're fixing what you broke. The Confederation was supposed to unite species, not subjugate them. It's time we remembered that. The vote on the new framework was overwhelming. 712 species in favor. Only 43 opposed. Mostly the old guard, who profited from the previous system. As the session ended, species began approaching the Earth delegation. They wanted to learn more. They wanted help reviewing their own agreements. They wanted to know how to question authority without destroying everything. Daeho found Myung in the crowd. The small alien looked exhausted but happy. You did it, Myung said. You actually changed the galaxy. We did it, Daeho corrected. You were the first one brave enough to say the system was wrong. We just said it louder. Outside the chamber, Admiral Quan stood with General Tae Yang, who had arrived for the historic vote. We didn't fire a single shot, Tae Yang said, sounding almost disappointed. No, Quan agreed. We fired something more dangerous. Captain Hana joined them, looking out at the stars through the observation window. Ships from hundreds of species were arriving, all wanting to witness the new era beginning. What happens now? She asked. Now comes the hard part, Quan said. Building something better. The Confederation maintained order through fear. We'll have to maintain it through cooperation. That's messier, harder, more complicated, but more honest, Hannah said. Yes, more honest. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. Humanity had gone to the stars, expecting to be conquered. Instead, they had started a revolution, not with weapons, but with the simple act of saying no and asking why. The 100,000 humans at the collection station were finally allowed to go home. They had never done a day of work. Yet they had accomplished more than any army could have. Months later, Myung species held their first free election in 3,000 years. They chose new leaders, made new laws, and began rebuilding their civilization on their own terms. 17 other species followed. Then 50. Then more. The Galactic Confederation still existed. But it was different now. Instead of tribute, species paid fair taxes for shared services. Instead of labor corps, they had voluntary exchange programs. Instead of forced technology transfer, they had open research partnerships. It wasn't perfect. Old attitudes died slowly. Vextar and others like him still fought against the changes. But the direction was clear. Ambassador Daeho sat in his office on Earth, watching reports from across the galaxy. His assistant brought him a message from the Council. They wanted Earth to host the next session. They wanted to learn more about human concepts like democracy, rights, and civil disobedience. He smiled. Humanity had been afraid they would be slaves to an alien empire. Instead, they had become teachers. They had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. That the only real power any government has is the power its people allow it to have. And when people stopped allowing it, everything changed. Captain Hana summed it up best in her official report. We didn't win with weapons. We won because we knew something they forgot. You can't rule people who refuse to kneel. The Confederation had asked for tribute. Humanity had given them something far more valuable. A mirror to see what they had become. And that made all the difference.